Hello, hello, hello. I'm inviting our friends who are surfers in the world, Filipinos and all over the people all over the world who are surfing aficionado and surfers, and to those people who want to study surfing and want to visit the surfing places in Australia. We have here Pastor John Fisherman, who is also a surfer himself, and
Was.
will talk to you about surfing in Australia. So, Pastor John, tell us about surfing.
Sure, only too glad to. Well, I want to tell you about my long hair and longboards to shortboards days, going back many years ago. In Adelaide, South Australia, you'd leave your home until I bought a home just 2 streets back from the main surf beach, Seaford. I would travel many miles the other side of Adelaide to go surfing. I'd be up first thing in the morning, 4 o'clock. My board would be packed the night before and my photographic equipment, and I'd go off. It was pitch black. I'd get there, the sun hadn't even come up, and I'd go out and have a surf by myself. There's no crowds there. And so I want to talk about the place to surf at, in starting off with Adelaide, South Australia, in the mid-coast and the south coast. Okay, now the mid-coast from Adelaide was only about 30 minutes to 40 minutes drive. And you get down to, first of all, we started off surfing at Moana, where all what we call the dead-ahead Freds would go, the learners, how can I put it, the ones that are just surfing, and you just surf dead ahead on the froth of the wave. On the white water, and over a reef, or mostly over sand down in Moana, and that's where you start until you graduated to go back a little bit to Seaford, where there was a reef break, and it was a right-hander. It'd peel off the edge of the reef like that. Beautiful right-hander, beautiful tube. The shore break would come up, and you could run down the longboards in those days on the tip of the nose, hang 10 toes over the nose, and you'd go, woo, cowabunga, and away you go, zooming along until the break would break like that, and you just get smashed into the sand. It was a great surf. It didn't get that big there. I suppose the biggest for me would have been about 6 to 7 foot. 7 foot's a big wave in Seaford. It's in the Gulf, and the surf comes actually Kangaroo Island, a big island out from South Australia there, from Adelaide. You can see it on a clear day. It's a long way away, and the island breaks the big surf coming from the south through there, so the island breaks the surf, and then it comes into the mid-coast, the Gulf, and then you have Seaford, and then you've got the Seaford Reef just out a bit further to the right when you're sitting out there on your surfboards, and in the cliffs there are caves where the fishermen would keep their boats. And they said that we were pretty gutsy to go fishing there, because about a half a mile out, they'd be fishing and they'd clean and gut all their fish, and the sharks would come around. But I never got chased out by a shark once there. Yeah, that was quite close actually, at Gull Rock. Now, Gull Rock was my favourite surf spot. It's just a rough road to get there, especially in the winter. You've got to put your foot right down the accelerator to get through. You go through the mud like this. There's bits of cars, muffler boxes and pipes and things like that strewn down the road when it dries up. It's a bit rough through a farmer's property. You climb down a big cliff. You've got to in the winter time, put your wetsuit on, take your surfboard down and climb down the cliff like that. And then you get to this beautiful right-hander over a reef, and it's like a black wave, and it's a perfect right-hander. There's no left there really. And then around the corner is another break, the second break. But it's the best shaped wave and the workable wave in the mid-coast. But when you get back to Seaford, there's another spot there, can't think of the name of it now, right next to it, but you go up further and you get the Triggs number 1 and Triggs number 2, and then you go to Snakes Point, which we just funnily called it Farrelly's Point, after Midget Farrelly, because it's a slow wave and it's a very long wave. It just wraps around this little point there, and when it's slightly onshore and the rest of the mid-coast, it can be a little bit offshore-ish, and it sort of is protected more from the offshore winds. And when it's a decent surf, I've ridden it up to 6 foot there. And it's a long ride, but it's a long paddle back again. Now, next to there is the river mouth. And it's a great wave when it works. In between there and Snakes, there's another wave that I surfed once. I remember my friend Ray Much. He was on the top, he'd finished surfing, and he watched me from the top, and he saw me take off on my backhand on my left side, and I dropped down, took off on my backhand, and then I did a turn, a bottom turn, and as the wave, the lip went over, I went through the tunnel there, through the tube, the barrel, and went on my forehand, right-handed, and made a really good wave. And then you go past there, the river mouth is good for toes on the nose, 5 or 10, and then you go to Southport, that's another good wave, and then you go through Port Noarlunga, and then you get to Chris's Beach. There's waves there on a big day. I forgot to mention the trough between the Seaford Reef and Moana is the trough. But going past there is Gull Rock. There's a big rock there with where all the seagulls had done white poo-poos on the top of the rock. It's called Gull Rock. That is a great place to surf, but hard to get there, like I said. Now, when the surf's not on there, you go down to the south coast, and that's a long drive through windy hills. And you get down to, first of all, you get to Victor Harbour. Now, on a big day, it works in Victor Harbour opposite the hotel, and it can get a decent size there. And if you turn to the right and go down further to Waipinga and Parsons, it's a very powerful ocean surf. And when the offshore winds blow, the wave holds up, and it's powerful. It really breaks heavy, and it can get quite big, up to 8 foot even, okay? Now, when you go back to Victor Harbour, you go around the corner and you get to a place called the Dump. And that's more of a shore break at most times. It's good for backhand re-entries. Now, I remember seeing Lane Hubbard doing a real cracker. I took it for the photograph of it for the front cover of 4 Point Surf magazine that I was a photographer for in those days. Then you go around the corner, and then you come to Middleton and Surfers. And they're normally big waves, and you jump off the rocks to go out, and you can get caught and get smashed on the rocks like I did one day with 6 foot seaweed piles on the top, bleeding and bruised. And I went back to do a weightlifting competition back at the gym that night, bleeding and bruised. And then if it's onshore there, the waves just close out, you go around the corner, and there's a place there called Redstone Bay. And if it's big surf, and it's onshore at Middleton and Surfers, it's offshore off this point, the Redstone Bay. There's all these red rocks there, and this wave comes around the point. It's point surfer, right-hander, and that's a good wave to ride. You can get up to 6 foot even on a big day. And so South Australia's got some great surf. So anybody who wants to surf and find out some great surf, like it hasn't been promoted like the Queensland surf, like the Sydney surf, the south coast of New South Wales surf, like the Victorian surf. It hasn't been promoted as much as that. But you can go to Yorke's Peninsula, and you can surf Pondalawi Bay, Chinaman's Reef. You can go to Daly Heads, and there's a lot of surf around there, and really beautiful opaque green water. And there's some powerful waves around that place. Good waves. Pondalawi Bay is my favourite place. You can just drop down on your backhand to left, and you can just get barreled and just hang onto your rail with your right hand and your hand up there to steady yourself, and you're inside the tube. Then you do a re-entry at the end. In the old days, we flick off on our longboards. Then you can go to Port Lincoln. You can get lots of surf around the fisheries, and there's lots of surf around there. Fisheries is a good place, very sharky. And then you can go to caves, and you can go to a lot of places around there. Cactus, and there's quite sharky around there, quite pointers where they all stay. So yes, Adelaide, South Australia has got some good surf. So go to Adelaide, South Australia, the mid coast and south coast, and get surf. If it's not big in the mid coast, go down the south coast. You'll always get a wave. You'll always get a wave. I remember one night we went down to the mid coast. We drove down there, me and my mates in my car. It's almost flat. So we go back down to the south coast. It's under 2 to 3 foot. We went out early morning at sunrise, and there's all these dolphins, porpoises, riding in front of our boards. You can reach down and touch them. We went back to the mid-coast on the way home, and it's 5 to 6 foot. There's a huge whale that came up behind us, huge. And we had 6 foot waves, so we had a great day surfing that day. you don't forget these things. These are things you just remember for all of your life. I'm going back many years. And I also would invite you to join the Epic South Oz Surf. Look for Epic South Oz Surf and join us there. I've been a member for the last 2 weeks, and it's great catching up to all my old surfing mates that I haven't seen for donkey's years. So go to Adelaide, South Australia, and surf South Australia. Experience South Australia for yourself. There is good surf there, I tell you. There is good surf there, and you'll be blessed by the surf. So experience South Australian surfing. And the South Aussies are good guys, good mates to have. Just go there and do your best, and have a surfing holiday in South Australia. This is Pastor John signing off from the Philippines, Quezon City, and say, good surfing, mates, good surfing. God bless you.
Thank you so much, Pastor John. Very well said. So, surfers of the world and people of the world, go to Australia, South Australia in Adelaide. Yes,
That's right.
it's a nice place for surfing. So for those our friends who are surfers and for those who want to learn surfing, come and visit South Australia in Adelaide and enjoy the surfing, fun in Australia. So this is your host, King Prince, Travel 369. Don't forget to watch, like, share, and subscribe to my YouTube channel. And also don't forget to visit our friends who are also YouTubers also, like Renba Channel, Stylesar, Doc Gia, and GRV TV Broadcasting also. So,
One more thing.
okay.
Make sure you don't crowd the places out, and don't get in the way of the locals. Don't drop in. Make sure you take your right turn. Okay, take your turn at the right time. Don't drop in. Okay, God bless you.
Okay, thank you, Pastor John. So, God bless us all, my friends. To God be the glory. God is good. Okay, my friends, surfers, and those people who want to learn surfing, this is a continuation of our episode about South Australia's places where to surf. So, I have here again Pastor John Fisherman. Pastor, continue.
Okie dokie. Well, I've just done an interview about surfing in South Australia. Now I want to do some about Victorian surf, and also a little bit about New South Wales surf, and also a little bit about Queensland surf, just a little bit, because we did a surf safari once, and so only once a surf safari. We even made t-shirts for that special event. Now, first of all, I'd like to say we'd leave Adelaide, say after work Friday night, and we'd be all packed after work, and we'd drive for 8 hours to get to Torquay in Victoria. You go right through border town from South Australia, through Murray Bridge, up the road there. It's the shortcut. You can go around the Great Western Highway. It takes much longer and much windier, but we always take the shortcut, and you'd get from the border town, you'd go through to Ballarat, which was the gold city way back in the old days, and then you'd take a right through down to Geelong, and then you'd head down 14 miles down to Torquay. And there's a lot of beaches around Torquay, like the Jan Juc. There's lifesavers everywhere. There's big surf there, really big surf. And then there's a big left-hander at Torquay that you go out. Point Danger, I think it was called. I only rode that a couple of times. And then you go around the corner to the front beach. I had a good friend there called Ray, and he was called the Germ. He was a surfboard maker right on the front beach there. Had a house that we stayed there many times. And then we go down through, there was Fisheries, which was a protected place where the yachts and boats were, but on a big swell, onshore swell at Torquay, it was offshore, and it'd get as big as 6 foot there, which normally it's flat, and then you could surf there. Then you go down further to a place called Point Impossible in Haleiwa. Now Haleiwa, it had lots of big breaks, and in between the breaks was a gap, a little gap from the reefs, and you could paddle out into that gap, and you can go right or left. It'd get big, up to 8 to 9 foot there, sometimes 10 foot, it'd get quite big. And then you go to Point Impossible. So you drive all night, get there at sunrise and go surfing. No sleep, and just go surfing. Like sometimes we would just go to surf one day, and we'd drive all night for 8 hours, surf for 8 hours, sleep and drive home another 8 hours, just to get a different wave. A little bit colder in the water, especially in the winter time. You had wetsuits, of course. In the summertime, you no need to. And then from Point Impossible was a really good wave. It only got up to about 8 foot there. It was really good. Good offshore winds that hold up as a long wall and easy to ride, good to ride. And then you go to the river mouth where you could do a few toes over the nose there. And then you'd go up from Torquay, you'd go to Bird Rock. You could just jump off this rock and then surf over it. And you go there as a good wave. Then you go up further to Bells Beach. Now this is where the big waves came, and they always had the Easter competitions there, surfing competitions, and people from all over Australia would go there. Then in the 1970s, they had the world's surfing titles at Bells Beach, and all the most famous surfers from all over the world came. And I was there at that time for a whole week and got a lot of photographs. In fact, I got a 2-page spread in Surfing World of Midget Farrelly, the famous surfer, doing a backhand turn. He's leaning right over like this, and his fins pop right out, and he never fell off. Ray Wilson, my friend, the Germ, he confirmed that. And that was a 2-page spread in Surfing World, a main Australian surf magazine. I did photographs for Tracks, Surfing World, and an American surfing magazine called Surfer. And then we had our own 4 Points surfing magazine, which was Adelaide's mid-coast, south coast surf magazine. And so you go there and you get big surf. In fact, when I first went there, I said to the people, the locals, it was 1960, I think it was by memory. I was only a young fella and just started surfing just before then. And I said, how big are those waves? I can't tell you. 15 foot, young man, 15 foot. And most people just stood on the cliff and just watched in awe, just a few riders out. And it was amazing. It was all longboards those days until the shortboards come in. And we always thought we'd have to use big guns to go on a big wave. The biggest wave I ever rode was 12 foot. And that was at Windang Island in New South Wales, south of Sydney, in the Illawarra area, big surf there. And so here you are, and Bells Beach, and after a couple of years, when it got small, 8 foot, I went out. I held them in awe. I had a friend, Phil Bramley, and he was a natural. He was on his right hand, but he could change feet. Change his stance to backhand on a sloppy 12-foot Bells Beach wave. He was incredible. I saw him once when we were at Kenneth River. That's up further you go. There's more surf spots. You get to Lawn and Lawn Point. You just jump off the rocks and you got surf. When Bells Beach was 12, 15 foot plus on shore, it'd be at least 6 foot plus off the point. And one day we're up further at not Flynn's Reef, sorry, that's another place in Phillip Island, which I haven't got to yet. And we're at Kenneth River, and Phil took off around that corner from the point, and he's riding his pink board. I can still see it. He's riding his pink board for around the corner from the point, and then I see the next thing I watch as I'm paddling out is he's running on top of the rocks, and his surfboard going boing, boing, boing on the rocks. He couldn't get around the corner. So he's a gutsy surfer. He tried anything. He's got no fear, this guy. No fear, Phil Bramley. Yeah, he was in the RAF then, a da man. And so then you get, from there you go back. There's more surf around there, of course, but you go back over to the other side of Melbourne to Phillip Island, which is about 80 minutes past Cranswick Racecourse, and you go across a bridge. But before you go across the bridge, it's another surf place called there's a rocks there, yeah, and Flynn's Reef it's called. No, that's over the other side of Phillip Island. Sorry, that's a beautiful wave. There's a big surge rock sticks out there, and you take off, and there's this big. As you take off, this big surge rock pops out, and you just hug the wall and just get over it, and then you get tubed, and then you can do big S turns, great big S turns right down to the beach. It's one of the best places I've surfed actually, Flynn's Reef. I love it. There's a big bommy out further at Cat Bay, and then you go over to these rocks over there, the other side, and it's a big left-hander. Huge Foot Rock, it's called Foot Rock. It's a long walk along the rocks. And at first you think the wave's only about a foot of high because it's so long a walk. You get there and it's 8 foot plus, and it's a big left-hander. I've got a photo of me surfing there. I never got many photos of myself because I'm always taking photos. Yeah, so yes, Victoria, it's got some good surfing places, really good. There's some other points, Blacks Bay and other points I haven't mentioned around just over the border of South Australia. There's some great surf around there. Yes, Victoria, try Victoria. It's got great surfing places. You'll be surprised, maybe not. But if you haven't been to Victoria to surf it, go there. Recommend it. Great surf, bigger surf than what you find in mostly in South Australia. It's bigger surf. They used to practice going to the Bells Beach to go to Hawaii to ride the big waves of Hawaii. They practice at Bells Beach. That's how good Bells Beach is. So that's me from Victoria. God bless you all. Real good.
Thank you so much, Pastor John. So he mentioned already about South Australia, Adelaide, and Victoria also is another place to go surfing. So this is your host again, King Prince of Travel 369. Please watch, like, share, and subscribe to my YouTube channel, and also my friends who have also YouTube channels like Stylesar, Renba channel, Dokja channel, and GRB TV Broadcasting. To God be the glory. God bless us all. God is good.